Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's Jean Nolan here. And we kind of have a back-to-back situation here. We invited, now I call him co-host for the show, Frank Jacob, back for another conversation because we need to go a little deeper. Frank, thank you so much for joining us again this quickly.
My pleasure to be here, John. Thanks for inviting me back.
Frank, our conversations are intensifying. And they're intensifying because everything else is intensifying too. And that's a reflection. As one train accelerates, the other train needs to accelerate even faster, the train of truth, the train of authenticity. And I'd like to quote one of the bravest human beings I've ever had the pleasure to meet. And we're going to interview her in very soon on the Inspire channel. And that's Cathy O'Brien. And Cathy O'Brien, for those of you who don't know who that is, she literally single-handedly with her partner and then later husband, they blew the whole or opened the whole can of worms on MK Ultra, Project Monarch, and mind control, government created, sponsored mind control. And she came out telling her life story, which is absolutely horrific. There are no words to describe what she went through. But also, she also went through healing, deep healing, and today is empowering people, speaking, doing movies, writing books, because she believes, and this is what she wrote in the book. When we bought her books, when we met her just a couple days ago, this is the first book, A Transformation of America. And she inscribed it to Jean and Kristin, truth makes us free, Cathy. So truth makes us free. We've heard this before. But what could be more powerful than a testament from someone who is literally, not figuratively speaking, literally enslaved for the first 25, 30 years of her life, enslaved, used for the most horrific things. She broke free, she healed, and she says today, truth makes us free. I want to make this the mantra for this conversation moving forward. It's been the mantra, but I want to honor Cathy and her bravery by being just as brave in what we do and showing that when we get to the bottom, when we go all the way, we are truly healed and empowered to create this beautiful new world and a beautiful new vision. And only this will set us free. Do you agree, Frank?
I think that you're absolutely right. It has a lot to do with the information density that we're now experiencing. It's really taking off exponentially. So topics that may have been taboo in the past, maybe we need to revisit some of those because it has to do with, we're going back to the idea of timelines. We're on this timeline. If we want to change the timeline, it's about recognizing that we're on a false timeline. And what are some of the foundational building blocks of that false timeline? Those are the lies upon which it has been built. And, the Cathy O'Brien story is a perfect, I'm just, psyched that you connected with her and that you're reading that story. Because that is, for me, when I came in contact with that information, it was one of the first times where I had to really reach down and deal with cognitive dissonance, because it really was one of those foundational, moments where you're kind of like, oh my God, right? Like you really realize you're living in a fictional world in terms of there's a narration, a narrative out there, and there are people that are filling roles, that are acting in a certain way that's completely contradictory to the way they are in their truest nature. And if we want to have any chance of breaking away from this false timeline, we have to be true to our true nature. We have to be brave enough to look at things and look and see where we've been conditioned. Like, where did that idea come from in the first place, kind of thing. Let me think, where was the source of that? And if we go back and look at the source, and we find out now with the fact that finally we're being able to come out with information that we didn't have access to, we still have tools at our disposal, so long as the internet still works, where we can actually cross-reference and communicate with one another, and we can determine what part was a lie and what part was true. And that'll help us heal, and it'll help us dissolve the fake timeline and create the real timeline that we want to be on.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And this is what we have been doing, but maybe not stating it as clearly. There's also, and this is what I've mentioned often, and Frank, I know you've observed this too, and you call it cognitive dissonance so beautifully, but what cognitive dissonance means is I observe one thing and see truth here, but I refuse to implement it into my life and go along with the falseness of it because of comfort, conditioning, or habits, right? So it means, you know, whether you know it in your heart or in your mind, you know something's a lie, but you still go along with the narrative of the lie because you've been doing it so long, you don't even know what anything else might look like. And in this, before we go into the first topic that we need to go deeper into, we've touched on that in the last conversation. I want to emphasize one thing, and it's becoming clearer as I study deeper. I've known the Kathy O'Brien story, MK Ultra Project Monarch, for many years, but I've never read the book and never gotten some of the details. And I now cross-reference some of the language that she references as mind control language with the language I know from the spiritual guru community. And my eyes are being opened to how truths, like 70% truth mixed with 30% fatal lies, are mixed into the spiritual teachings. The greatest and most fatal lie that today's self-help gurus and spiritual teachers teach is that you don't need to look at the truth, number one, and that's a big one, right? Because who would benefit from you not looking at the truth? And I can tell you this, in personal healing, there's no such thing as healing your traumas and forgiving and going all the way without actually looking at what happened to you. There's no such way. You cannot heal unless you look at what has happened and go deep into it. You don't need to do it 50 times, but you need to do it at least once to initiate healing. Collectively speaking,
you need to do it to understand it once, to see it for what it is, and then, not labor on it.
And forgive.
Exactly.
And forgive. That's literally the path. So collectively speaking, as mankind, we need to do the same thing. We will not be able to go all the way unless we go to the roots of it all. And in the spiritual community, this has been, of course, where we least expected, because these are people that are liberators. They show us a way to be free and manifest what we want, but they've also been conned. You see, these mind control programs go into all spheres. And so we have to question these programs and also question our own beliefs. Where do they come from? How have we built those beliefs? Based on what information? I can't say that we are able to provide truth 100% of the time. What I can say is that we're willing to seek truth 100% of the time. I think as we go into this topic, I think this was important for both of us to clarify. Now, Frank, we opened a whole new can of worms. And the whole new can of worms in our last conversation, which we're going to put up here, the link to that, wasn't that there is a social credit system in the works. We knew that. China already has it. Other countries have it in a soft way. We knew that. What we broke, the can of worms that we opened, was we have already seen accounts of people that we all know in the public realm, and we have seen that they're already interacting with their social credit accounts and moving funds into the new currency, which was breaking because we didn't have that information before, which also means there's a beta activeness in that system. What can you tell us about that? And we can maybe touch a little bit on the accounts that we have already had access to or have been given screenshots, better said. Thank you so much for tuning in. Frank, Jacob, and I go really deep in this conversation. We're unfiltered, uncensored, and this doesn't work really well on this platform. So I encourage you to watch the full conversation free of charge. Please hop over to our Inspired community on Locals, and you can watch the full interview with Frank Jacob free of charge. Do it now.